Executive Director of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists. We're very pleased to have you join us today, and we're honored to have with us Attorney Yael Vias Gvirsman, who is the founder and CEO of October 7 Justice Without Borders Limited, which is headquartered in Tel Aviv. And before I introduce Yael not at length, but a little bit more, I want to just say a few words about how I first met her and sort of the circumstances under which all that took place. AAJLJ, in the early part of March of this year, undertook a mission to Israel. It was our first mission. A couple of our leaders had been to Israel subsequent to October 7th, but as an organization, it was our first visit to Israel since October 7th. And of course, it's a cliche to say everything had changed. Is changed in Israel today in light of what happened at that time. And just the day we're seeing the statement of one of the parents of the hostages, a hostage who was freed, is taking place, and it's just yet another illustration of how this continues to impact the news and impact all of our work. So we had in that mission, we met with a couple of retired Supreme Court justices. We met with some government officials who do work for various ministries, leaders of NGOs, a law professor, a quite sterling group of folks, leaders in the academic community and leaders in the legal community. And I was most struck, I have to say, and this is without minimizing the important work they all do, by Yael and the work that she and her organization is doing. And I want to say a word about why that is the case. Part of our mission to Israel was to go to the south, to visit an affected kibbutz, we stopped by one of the bus stops, which had been the scene of a violent attack and the deaths of many Israelis and hostage taking. And we went to the site of the Nova Festival, where those of you who have been there know that there are plaques, pictures of each and every person that was killed at that site. And as I said when we met with Yael at the time, and I always choke up when I talk about this, so it's going to happen again. I'm a son of Holocaust survivors, and I have to say, going to the Nova Festival was the most impactful thing for me since I stood at the site where my father was selected for life at Auschwitz, and when so many other people were selected for death. So this really, we all have heard over and over again how this was the greatest assault, the greatest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It really is. A couple of years ago, the AAJLJ honored Eli Rosenbaum, who has done incredible work, who did incredible work at the Department of Justice, bringing to justice some of those responsible for carrying out, in some way or another, the destruction of the Jewish people during the Holocaust. And that was holy work on his part, bringing about that justice. And so it is, of course, important for us to mourn. It's important for us to respond to the anti-Semitism that has taken place in the United States and around the world in the wake of October 7th. But it's also crucially important that the people who carried out these acts be brought to justice themselves in courts of law. And that is the work that Yael is engaged in, is that holy work of bringing people to justice. So with that, I'm going to introduce Yael. Attorney Yael Vias Gvirsman is a leading expert in criminal and international humanitarian law with 20 years of litigation experience representing victims of crimes against humanity worldwide. She's a graduate of the Humanitarian Department at the UN Secretariat in New York, the International Law Department at the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs Attorney's Office, and the International Affairs Department at the State Attorney's Office. She has been involved in humanitarian aid and international law across multiple arenas. She's the first Israeli woman to represent clients at The Hague, both in defense and victim representation, setting legal precedents and successfully handling cases from start to finish. I could say much more about the work she has done in international criminal tribunals and the courts, international courts she has appeared before, but suffice it to say that she has worked extensively on cases related to war crimes, victim representation, and strengthening investigations of international crimes in a variety of settings where crimes against humanity have taken place. She is a founder of the Criminal International Humanitarian Law Clinic at Reichman University, is a member of both the International Law Association and the War Crimes and Human Rights Forum of the International Bar Association. So with that, although there's more that could be said, there's, I haven't described or said anything about the organization, October 7 Justice Without Borders Limited, which Yael is a founder and CEO of, but I will leave that to you, Yael, to tell us what we need to know about your organization and the work it's doing. It's an honor to have you here with us today. Please take it away.
Thank you so very much, Richard. After these words of introduction, I'm very touched. Thank you, Richard. It's an honor for me to be here with you today. So good afternoon. I think it's noontime where you're at. It's evening here in Tel Aviv. Thank you also to Arthur Traldi for sort of connecting the dots and initiating what we're doing now after our amazing meeting, Richard, you mentioned in March 2024-5 in Tel Aviv with the AAJLJ delegation to Israel. Thank you, Alicia Gerejish, for making this happen as well. And thank you, of course, Richard Fulton, Executive Director of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists. I see many of you here, and it's a true honor to be here with you to present October 7 Justice Without Borders, a nonprofit organization established under Israel law, and our unique action for survivor justice and ending impunity for Hamas crimes, Hamas and their accomplices worldwide. Some of these crimes, and you've mentioned this, Richard, are still ongoing, with 58 hostages still in captivity. And the crimes there are, of course, crimes against humanity, war crimes, hostage taking, hostage keeping, and of course, the treatment, the torture that they're undergoing. So we're talking about crimes committed on 7th of October, around 7th of October, until this day as we speak, as crimes are ongoing. Outside of this privileged moment that we have together to share, the world, there are external and internal challenges, acute, extreme challenges. War is ongoing after a much-awaited ceasefire. Unfortunately, bloodshed the battlefield is on again, and increasingly so. Internally, the cleavages are greater than ever. I really honestly don't think Israeli society has been under such strain. And genuinely, I think there is no other society I have personally witnessed that has been under so much strain and has still kept the social cohesion together and away from internal violence and bloodshed, God forbid. And I pray that we continue on this way, because despite the challenges, and they are acute, our unity is very important, because again, I mentioned external challenges. And war is ongoing, and it is very, very difficult to carry on with a war when there is such breaches within, when there is a break of trust or questioning of leadership and so forth. And we still continue. So war is ongoing. There is, since October 7, an extremely politicized reality, little place for dialogue. I'm going to speak about legal arena and one of the main actors, the International Criminal Court, the permanent International Criminal Court based in The Hague, established in 1998, based on the giants of Nuremberg trials and so forth. Only recently, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan announced his administrative leave in order to allow an investigation into very serious allegations of rape and sexual violence within his office. The presidency of the International Criminal Court announced that it delegated the inquiry to an independent international panel. While all this is ongoing, this is the reality outside, and it is a true privilege for all of us, I think, to spend this time together, zoom in and focus on justice and all the craziness and obscene reality we are living today. So I ask, and thank you very much, Richard, for your in-depth introduction, because it really touches to the crux of the matter. Does justice matter? Does justice matter? I ask this every day, and I say it does. I say it matters more than ever. So I would like to devote the next around 40 minutes to tell you why I think justice matters, to tell you about our, to speak very concretely. I say justice was key at Nuremberg to go past the vicious crimes, systematic crimes, where Auschwitz was one of its incarnations. I say justice mattered at Eichmann during the Eichmann trial, when the Mossad captured Adolf Eichmann in Argentina. It was so much easier to kill him. But David Ben-Gurion, the visionary, ordered the Mossad to bring Eichmann alive to his trial in Jerusalem. Israeli society was not the same before and after the Eichmann trial. I say justice was key also in South Africa's transition from apartheid under Nelson Mandela's vision, where South Africa could have broken out into bloodshed, and instead there was a commission of truth and reconciliation, a different form of justice, but justice all the same for the perpetrators, allowing a forward-looking respect. In the 88 decades that have passed since Nuremberg, the world has grown wiser and more mature in terms of global justice and what it can offer. Justice has many forms. Justice moved from a very state-centered form of insult of the world faced with atrocities, to include a victim-centered approach. And this is what I will present today, leading on to the October 7 Justice Without Borders action. I will try to be as concrete as possible to enable you an insight into our unique action based on universal values that we have all grown on, we have all stemmed on universally and also personally, I must say. Action that has galvanized on October 7, or we can also call it on October 8th, as some people say today. What October 7 is a notion. Our clocks are still set to 6:29 in the morning, October 7th, and yet there is an October 7, which is action. It is a moment where personally the pieces of a puzzle of 20 plus years of experience in the world of accountability for atrocities, with different hats, whether in defense or victim representation or prosecution or humanitarian work. It's a moment where all the pieces of the puzzle made sense and have led to what we're seeing today. So I'm going to share my screen, and in the next now less than 40 minutes, let me just, can you see my screen with the, with our presentation, a PowerPoint presentation?
It's visible.
Is it visible? And can you see the slides moving? We're now on a slide which is showing American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists logo and October 7 Justice Without Borders logo. Yes?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, in the time we have, I'd like to present who we are, what we do, what is the legal action about, what is our legal action. What we do is encompassed by legal action, building evidentiary basis for the legal action. We're not an archive, but we build the evidence to sustain the legal action. We will also, I hope we'll have time to focus on action targeting sexual violence committed on and since October 7th, and what that means in legal terms and how we can interpret that to action and to action for accountability. We'll also perhaps have time to look at a few achievements that we've had and since October 7th or October 8th, and looking forward. Where are we going to? What are our long-term goals? And also how perhaps you can be part of this action. So October 7 Justice Without Borders is a nonprofit legal initiative fighting atrocities, ending impunity, and bringing survivor justice through the power of international law. I wrote the power of international law because this is international law that is, we're talking about the universal values that unite all laws of all states, universal values. So international law where it can be implemented by domestic courts, national courts, and also international courts and local and national and international mechanisms for justice. I spoke about values we collectively grew on. Truth, justice, peace are the three pillars of the world based on according to Jewish tradition. So how it all began, October 7th, 2023, 6:29, it's a Sabbath morning. I'm with my family in Tel Aviv, my husband and 2 children. And we're woken up to alarms. We're not alone, but we don't know it yet. And these alarms are incessant, they're stubborn, they're recurrent. In hindsight, we know that there are thousands, 7,000 missile attacks and sirens in that week or two that followed the launching of the attack by Hamas and 4 Palestinian militias. And of course, there are complicits worldwide, enabling, allowing, training, creating what we know is a systematic and generalized attack against a civilian population in knowledge of the attack, which is what I've just said, the contextual element describing crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity where we see the same acts committed in different places at the same time. And unfortunately, some of these acts are continuing to be committed today. And all of the acts committed on that day still have an impact on individuals trying to build their lives and on communities. We have the attacks were against individuals, of course, but specifically against 2 cities, in 28 different crime bases, different locations, and massively against kibbutzes. We know that the kibbutzes have this collective way of living, a very unique sort of web of or culture of life, this collective way of living together that is also dependent on geographic location. And we know that since October 7, many of these kibbutzes have lost their geographic location. There are still very strong ties that were built throughout 8 decades of these kibbutzes' existence, and sometimes more than 8 decades. And still these ties of what consists of these kibbutzes are strained, heavily so. So we bring experience in global justice for atrocities committed. They were not invented on October 7. They were committed, of course, under the Nazi regime. They were committed in Rwanda, in former Yugoslavia. They're being committed in Ukraine, in Democratic Republic of Congo, in Darfur, Sudan, in many other situations. The difference is we are bringing this expertise home, which is a whole new situation, a whole new challenge. Our DNA is that we do what the state cannot do. A state can investigate and prosecute. Until this day, we do not have, we do have investigations. We do not have active prosecutions within the primary country of jurisdiction, the place where the crimes were committed on its territory. We have other crimes, other competitive or complementary jurisdictions by other states. We will see it to that based on the nationality of the victims, and also other principles like the principle called universal jurisdiction. I'll say words about all of these principles, which are the basis of jurisdiction for different courts to act, different mechanisms, and which is the basis for our action. So our action is based on the fact that we are independent, we are non-political, we act for unconditional humanity. We lead strategic litigation. So we'll also understand what strategic litigation is. This is strategic litigation for human rights. Strategic litigation focused on the victims' rights, their rights to truth, their rights to justice, their rights to reparations, and their rights to non-repetition, making never again a reality. These are 4 fundamental rights that are recognized by international law and are implemented by different courts and justice mechanisms around the world. So you have here our mission in points. You may have a chance to read it. I'm not going to read everything that is written on the slides. And also this is being recorded and will be sent to anyone who is registered. And so you'll be able to also look at these slides later on. However, I will sustain that the action that we lead directly targets the perpetrators. They are around the world, accomplices around the world. It is obvious Hamas and the 4 other militias and thousands of other civilians and the weapons and all of the elements of the crime are sustained by a worldwide web of, unfortunately, of a network of a joint criminal enterprise for the commission of these crimes. Same as the nature of the crimes, that is the scope, the definition, the architecture of our litigation. Our work, our action for justice serves the direct victims. I will say about that. We represent victims directly. It's a unique feature compared to other actors in the space, and there are amazing actors in the space, civil initiatives that either existed before October 7 and brought prior experience or were created on October 7 or since for October 7 justice. So we represent victims directly by power of attorney. Our action serves the direct victims, and they also serve Israeli society, Jewish society that was also targeted, is still targeted, of course, as you may know, around the world, and also serves democracies, rule-based democracies, because courts and trials are a strong and valid, a very valid, solid voice with bringing the highest legitimacy in order to establish the truth against denial, against hatred, against anti-Semitism, against wrongs that we are all witnessing. So our offensive legal action is direct, and it is also built with, we're a very lean structure. And our offensive legal action is enabled by very high expertise that we're bringing specifically today, a targeted strategy, a very committed team with me here in Tel Aviv, and partners globally, worldwide, whether grassroots NGOs specializing, for example, in women's rights or mental resilience, or documentation here based in Israel, or international experts worldwide who recognize us, our unique role in the space, international experts for sexual violence and conflict, international investigators, prosecutors, anti-terrorism prosecutors, and international crimes prosecutors, and international experts in general, including terrorist experts who are delivering reports to base the legal action that we lead. All our strategic litigation is pro bono for the victims. I personally vouch for them that no one should ask any cost for anything that we do of the services we provide. It's for the greater good. Unfortunately, the victims we represent are the direct victims. However, I and we see the harm as collective harm and our duty to do what we are doing. Our model for financing, because if it's pro bono strategic litigation and what we're doing is encompassing global legal action, how do we sustain our action? These are questions I receive almost every day. We are based, we depend solely on philanthropic donations, philanthropy, non-political, so philanthropy, non-governmental donations for 3 years of action. And then our economic model is that part of the fruit of part of the civil litigation, and also very maybe even symbolic legal aid, will kick in after 3 years of activity, and will allow us to do what we do for hundreds today, to do for the many thousands out there who deserve, who are eligible for our action and who need our action. Our impact is collective. We bring a universal voice directly for victims, but also for generations to come. Trials, the October trials we lead, will be learned in school books, and in law schools everywhere. These are our strategic objectives. Establish a global accountability mechanism, the October trials, based on the legacy of the Nuremberg and the Eichmann trials, or the Barbie trials in France, ending impunity for atrocities committed on and since October 7, including extermination, murder, torture, rape and sexual violence, destruction, pillage, and ongoing hostage-taking, crimes committed until today. We pursue truth and historical record keeping in courts against denial and revisionism, just like the Nuremberg trials serve against denying the Holocaust until today. Secure reparations. These are rights of direct victims in order for them to rebuild their lives, restore their communities. Reparations that are directly taken from either frozen assets of terrorism, so that are now sort of blocked within state treasuries. We think it is righter for these sums to go directly to victims, and also reparations that we take and out of our legal action, identifying ongoing, current, active funding of terrorism, allowing the continuation of crimes committed till this day. And so this is where our impact is even stronger, because it serves the double objective of the reparations going directly to victims, but also giving a fatal coup against terrorist infrastructure worldwide. All of this ensures non-repetition, naming, shaming, blaming, having a sign of Cain, like in the Bible, against the murderers, against their accomplices, will serve to name the truth, and also to avoid cooperation and ongoing either cooperation or blindness to the reality today, where non-state fanatic extremist armed groups who they swear by death, they swear by human suffering, are today dictating world order, which is something the world cannot sustain. Absolutely cannot sustain. We cannot allow it. We cannot sustain it. There is action that can be military, there is diplomatic action, but in all of this shaping of today's world and the future, setting a record of this immediate past and ongoing crimes, justice has a key role to play. So who do we represent? First, a disclaimer. This picture are pictures that are broadly public, even too public in my mind. Part of the damage to these innocent and once anonymous victims is the immediate, from 0 to 100% immediate exposure of their stories and so forth. So the images here do not necessarily represent the persons we actually represent, who have chosen. It is just illustrative. Part of what we do is protecting the people who have chosen our representation. We openly speak about people who part of their journey for justice is to name themselves, just like the Luke family, Shani Luke's family, or Eli Sharabi and his family, or Moran Stella Yanai, a survivor from Nova Hostage, who leads a very courageous voice, very humane voice. So these are people, we have many who part of their journey is to be named and to say, we are leading a struggle for justice. But for the many others we represent, and today we represent over 400 victims, signed direct power of attorney, we keep them anonymous. They keep them anonymous in order to protect their safety, in order to protect their privacy, but also in order to protect the integrity of the procedure. because most of the cases we lead are still under investigations, and we are taking an active part in investigations. This is a bit of a 3 points to show our, growth by 1000%. October 15th, 2023, I represented 37 victims. It started on 8th and 10th of October when citizens, civilian volunteers reached out to me and asked two things. One, connect us with the International Red Cross based in Tel Aviv, which I did. And I continued transmitting at 4 a.m. every 4 a.m. Very confidential information to the International Red Cross. And they, at 9 a.m., they would say, confirm information received, data is preserved, and so forth. And then we didn't know what was going on there. And the second ask was, we want someone to talk to them. Will you, on this came on the 10th of October, a cry for seeing these direct victims, speaking with them. Will you speak with them, was the ask. Will you speak with them? Nobody is speaking with them. Not the government, not the police, not the military, not the Mossad, not the Shabak, not the parliamentarians. Israel was under attack by all means, and for the first at least 2 months, the existing authorities were under a tsunami of needs. And in any case, on the 10th of October, no one was speaking with the victims. That is when I understood, I decided on my professional hat. My sister is based in the south, living in a kibbutz 9 kilometers from the border. 7 kilometers from the border were evacuated. So personally, except for the general shock and unfolding of atrocities, which was very real in every house, there was also this existential anxiety for my sister and her family. Thankfully, they were unhurt, at least in body, of course, mentally. There is a big earthquake there to their collective communities, and so forth, people they knew, and so forth. Today, we're representing 400 plus victims, and in the next few months, we're going to onboard around approximately 1,550 additional victims, thanks to our partners representing in non-clashing claims or rights, for example, with Bituach Leumi, who have recognized our role and who their let's say clients want to join our representation. So this is tremendous efforts that are done by our team. You can see here, this is updated to 392 victims we represent. This means 132 families. This is a bit to show you a map of the different places, crime bases we represent, and also the nationalities. We represent over 20 different nationalities. The important thing to know is the damage created by 1 day of an attack, be it 3 days of an attack or 1 day, created such large-scale harm. We have 241 hostages, including the 4 who were already in captivity in Gaza, more than 1,200 murdered by a genocidal intent of massacring and extermination on that day. Over 50,000 direct victims were recognized by Israeli Social Security of 1 day of harm, including 17,000 children, direct victims, and over 330,000 internally displaced persons on or around October 7th, because remember, the attack was in the south, in the north, and everywhere, and 330,000, tremendous numbers, difficult to contain. This is a bit of a map showing, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, which is wonderful, because I do want to get to put words where they are necessary. So this map shows the representation of the victims and their nationalities. Every nationality theoretically allows us to act, because every country or most countries have jurisdiction to act when their civilians are attacked by atrocity crimes. So these are the places we could potentially act. Our legal action is based where there is an added value to act. We don't act everywhere we can. We add where there's added value. And of course, we are managing the resources to bring the most effective action. This is a bit of a scale showing the demographics of the victims we represent by age. You have children, you have very minor children, and I also want to outline and emphasize the very elderly who we represent, who people from 80 years old who were taken hostage or murdered in cold blood. Those who were taken hostage, those who survived captivity, they return after 50 some days to their homes to discover there is no home, there is no kibbutz. They discover all the members of the kibbutz who died that day, individuals, amazing individuals from Nir Oz, one of the kibbutzes who takes me most at heart, where 1/4 of its population was either murdered or taken hostage that day. There are still hostages awaiting return from Nir Oz. So I want to emphasize the specific harm to very elderly persons who at the age of 80 have to rebuild their lives, reconstruct the social cohesion that they knew till then, living in new temporary homes in a very different manner. Our victims, the victims we represent, are half women, half men about, and this is continuous no matter the number of people we represent. These are the locations affected by it. Please don't look at the numbers because this was maybe when we were representing 340 victims, but it is representative. So most of the people we represent come from Be'eri, Kfar Aza, the Nova Festival. I think it's 23% of persons we represent today are from the festivals. Not only the Nova, there were 4 different festivals. Nir Oz. These are the main places where we represent, and you see here in red the sort of geographical places of where the survivors we represent come from. So persons we represent are survivors. They are those murdered and bereaved families. They are hostages. We represent 44 hostages. Most of them are free today. We still have individuals in captivity. And we're fighting for their release. So hostages and their families. So survivors, murdered and bereaved families, and hostages and their families. In the maybe 10 minutes we have left, what is the actual legal action? This is a sort of slide that shows the criminal lawsuits, the action, you can read it here. It's both directly at the International Criminal Court. Our action at the International Criminal Court is pioneer. We were the first to act. We're the only ones bringing direct hands-on experience in litigation directly at the court and based in Israel here, speaking the language, part of the society with direct communication with the victims in their mother tongue. Our action at the International Court is unique. It's one of our sort of milestones or achievements. It began on the 15th of October 2023 when I made the first communication to the victim section of the International Criminal Court, stating my status as a representative for victims before the court of Hamas and accomplices atrocities committed on October 7. And a communication to the ICC prosecutor, the first one issued in the name of the victims of October 7 attacks ever. This communication, I issued it on the 31st of October 2023. The structure here, October 7 Justice Without Borders, that I am so grateful to represent to you, did not exist yet. It was officially established on March 6th under Israeli law by funding that the first funding that I found on November or December 2023. So that also led that was invested in building this structure that will and does and would allow the sustainability that the action that began on the first day. So criminal lawsuits include the action with investigators, prosecutors, international or domestic with the International Criminal Court, or based on universal jurisdiction, which is a principle saying that for specific crimes, just like Nazi crimes, okay, so atrocity crimes, regardless of where they are committed, regardless of the identity of the perpetrators or the victims, specific countries will investigate and prosecute. One of these countries is Germany. Out of 8 jurisdictions we chose Germany because it's the most solid and robust jurisdiction to lead these kind of investigations and prosecutions. It is also one of 2, but others are closing the gaps, but 2 jurisdictions to have investigated and successfully prosecuted Syrian crimes against Daesh committed against Yazidis and others, including sexual crimes committed by Daesh. So criminal action is at the International Criminal Court and in domestic jurisdictions. Universal jurisdiction is open to victims of all nationality in Germany. And we're also leading investigations and prosecutions in Germany and France for nationals, French nationals, in Argentina for Argentinian nationals, based on continental law, so very different from the crowd here, I presume. So I'll say a word about that. In continental law systems and at the International Criminal Court, victims have a specific role and a specific representation in the procedure, and also during investigations and even before investigation to trigger investigations. And that's what we did at the International Criminal Court in Germany, in France, in the first weeks after the attacks, following the attacks. We're also leading or have a role representing victims in common law jurisdictions in Israel, of course, with the district prosecutor who is leading the investigation and hopefully very sooner than later prosecutions. And also with the US has a task force on October 7, and also other jurisdictions where we represent victims and we can represent their voices, bring evidence, tangible evidence, where we build the evidentiary sort of base. And we also have an advantage compared with international prosecutors because we are based here in the territory, the country of origin, and also we have direct contact, communication, trust of victims. By the way, when I speak of our achievements, that is my #1 achievement for our organization, the trust we receive every day by the direct victims, and this trust is growing, and the number of victims who give us their trust from October 7, from 8th of October, from 10th of October till today is ongoing. And this is for me personally, one of our greatest achievements. The civil lawsuits are against the state supporting terrorism, against financiers, either banks, crypto, other entities supporting, enabling the crimes, and against UNRWA and the Palestinian Authority and others. So this is civil lawsuits issued, filed in the United States of America and Israel, along with our partners. So one thing I started to say, but I didn't complete the sentence, I will do it now. We are a thin structure acting with a robust, expert, very committed team in Tel Aviv and partners worldwide. So I did say that. This means that the civil lawsuits, we have a major, not exclusive, but major partner leading the civil lawsuits, bringing, and each of our partners based in Germany, based in France, based in Argentina, based in Australia, based in the USA for the civil lawsuits, bring their expertise, empower us so that the whole is greater than each of the elements, bringing their expertise in over 20 years of litigation for victims of terrorism from the first intifada, from the second intifada, and until today, with years of experience and many actual cases brought to fruition and successes. Other legal actions, so it could be in the international arena, International Criminal Court, I said, but also with UN mechanisms where you have individual complaints in New York and Geneva based on human rights treaties. We cooperate with fact-finding reports, either domestic or international. And of course, in Israel, where we're also building the evidentiary basis with requests for documentation that we've issued and contact that we have with authorities from the very first months, maybe from December or January, with authorities who were there to identify the missing. There were 3,000 missing individuals on October 7, and there was extreme efforts by authorities. I said they were under a tsunami of needs. The priority was to identify the missing, who is dead, who is alive, who is hostage, and out of the hostages, who is dead and who is alive. We're short on time here, so I'm passing through the sort of images, the slides. I did set my alarm to 40 minutes, but I started it before I spoke, so I still have a few minutes left here. So pursuing justice for sexual violence. Sexual violence was committed and systematically on October 7. We are convinced about this. Of course, it's not an easy task to prove, and it's not a new thing that it's difficult to prove this. This is the case in every atrocity scene, whether in former Yugoslavia, where there were eventually tens of thousands, so different setting, a war of several years, tens of thousands of systematic rapes and sexual violence that were the basis for the establishment of the International Ad Hoc Criminal Tribunal for Crimes Committed in former Yugoslavia, the ICTY. It was one of the crimes, the sexual crimes, but also ethnic cleansing. It's always difficult to prove. It's always the last thing that those who collect evidence of crimes, when they can collect it, that's the last thing that they collect. And it's something that the world is smarter with today. So it's also something that received a lot of exposure and is the crux of, let's say, the mind battle, the battles over the hearts and souls. It's whether sexual violence was committed or not. We are convinced, we know that sexual violence was committed on October 7 and since October 7 against hostages, but on October 7 in different places. And so we can say that this is systematic. This is systematic. Yes, the action we lead is unique in terms of the sexual violence because we're representing direct victims and we're leading legal action so that in the arrest warrants, sexual violence and rape is recognized. And in the prosecution and when in the trials, when we will represent the victims, we will bring, when we are bringing evidence till then, but we will bring as also legal arguments and factual arguments on these crimes. But our action isn't limited to that. And I'm ending now, maybe another 2 minutes. Our action is also about building strategic partnerships because we don't want to do what we do alone. What we do is unique, but we recognize that there are tremendous actors out there, whether in policy making or education or in mental resilience or in documentation. There are tremendous things to do. One of the things we're in the steering committee with a coalition established by parliamentarians, a parliamentarian Shelley Talmeron. She's a member of Knesset, alongside French Minister Aurore Berger for Equality, and the coalition with other parliamentarians, the Coalition for Sexual Violence and Conflict. We were not there in the beginning. This was established in January by Shelley Talmeron. We were not there we joined, and now we're looking forward to a charter against sexual violence because we're building coalitions, also coalitions of survivors of the same atrocities. And in November 2025, tune in. We're going to have a very special event in Paris to launch this charter. I'm in charge of the judicial, substantive, legal sort of chapter and drafting this charter alongside amazing experts worldwide, doing what we're doing, global justice actors, what we're doing here in Israel for global justice. They're representing victims, Yazidi in Syria or in Ukraine or in many other places. So our action is, the impact is the direct action we target, but also there's the strategic partnerships we build, academia. I'm a law professor teaching for the past over 10 years on what we do. I won't go through our milestones, even though this is sort of like a timeline of our action. It's not inclusive of everything, but it does give you insight to what we do. And also a word on what we're looking ahead. We're looking on the joining 1,500 additional victims and always maintaining the same humane representation. We're not a factory. even where in the day when we represent maybe 20,000 victims at the International Criminal Court. This is happening, this is happening in other cases, for example, for Rohingya and Bangladesh situation before the court and others. We will always maintain a humane structure, direct communication with victims, empowering victims, letting them choose and understand, and having access to justice, understanding our action. We invest a lot in outreach to victims because for us, they are our moral compass. They're our raison d'être, our reason of doing everything that we do. Our action, of course, serves collective and individual reconstruction, defending democratic values, combating anti-Semitism worldwide. And at the end, many times people I speak with ask me, what can we do to support you? We are all affected by October 7 in some way or the other, either remotely or directly. But what we can all agree on is that life is not the same. Richard, you also said this, so this is perhaps, I'm circling the circle here. It's a good ending. If you want to support us, we are more than happy. We welcome your support. As I said, part of our DNA is that we're independent, non-political, and so forth. And so we depend on philanthropy for our action for at least 3 years. And every sum counts and actually makes a difference. You can look into our Cause Match fundraising campaign that is ongoing until the end of this month, with even detail of where the money goes to. I won't go to that, but you can screen that in the sort of right? You can do a QR code there with your phones, even now on the webinar, and hopefully it will work. If not, it's causematch.com sort of /07J. You can please join us on social media. We have LinkedIn, Facebook is in Hebrew, but we have LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I have students volunteering so that our action is widespread and known. We have a newsletter you can join, and perhaps Richard or Alyssa will say a word about this to the participants who have signed. Our newsletter goes out about once a month or at every important event. And you can follow us. We have a website as well listed here. And of course, you'll receive the recording of this webinar. I'd like to stop so that with the time we have, we could accept some questions.
So time is short. Let me first of all, thank you so much, Yael, for your very complete presentation, but most of all for the work you are doing every day, you and your colleagues, to bring at least some rough measure of justice to those who have been so mutilated and hurt by what happened on October 7th and since. Let me also repeat. You mentioned Arthur Traldi. I want to thank Arthur for having brought us together and for the work that he does on behalf of AAJLJ all of the time. And as well, Rhonda Lees and Alyssa Gresh, who made this program today possible for all that they do. So one question that comes up often, it's asked in the chat by my friend Dan Pires, is the irony of your going to the ICC to seek justice when, at least from the perspective of many of us, the ICC has been anything but a neutral tribunal. And in terms of dealing with Israel, and this goes, of course, for other organs of justice within the United Nations system. So the question Dan asks is, are you somehow validating the ICC and having gone to it? But beyond that, could you talk to us a little bit about what it feels like for you to be before this tribunal and how they have received you? Do you have a sense that they are giving you the respect that you are due for the claims that you're bringing there?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. And it is a recurrent question, and everyone is interested. ICC, friend or foe? I'm often asked. So am I validating, or are we validating the ICC by going there? I would say that we're refusing to leave that space void. That's what we're doing. The ICC, it's very important to stress, the ICC is totally separate from the United Nations. The United Nations itself has around hundreds, if not thousands, of mechanisms, different rapporteurs, different councils, different working groups. Some of them are political by definition, where states sit, and some of them are professional, supposed to be non-political entities, so impartial and independent, where experts from around the world sit, including Israeli experts. And I will always maintain that Israeli experts and experts worldwide, Jewish, non-Jewish, American, everyone of all color, greed, origin, etc., have to take this space. This space was created. The space is neutral. The mandate is impartial. The mandate is independent. After that, you have individuals who fill the space. And of course, every individual is part of this world, and we see where the waves are going through. And that's why education is not less, or let's say filmmaking, education, communication is not less important than the actual legal or the justice that we lead. In order to establish the truth, because we need people's hearts to be open so that their ears are open. However, we believe that justice is the strongest way to establish the truth, and that when justice is established, just like at Nuremberg, it will also serve every other, the space, the social media, the fake news, and so forth. So specifically at the ICC and how we're accepted there, we have to understand that the mandate of the ICC. So first, the situation of the ICC, the fact that the ICC is investigating October 7, atrocities, and also military operations since. So Israeli policy or military operations in Gaza since is based on jurisdiction that began before. And in the before stage, I was not representing victims directly. I was acting as an expert. You said I established the International Criminal Humanitarian Law Clinic at Reichman University, an institution I'm very grateful for. It's my professional home for the past 12 years. And it was the home for my professional work when I returned with my family from the International Criminal Court from The Hague in 2013, after living there for 2 years, where I continued working there since. And that's an advantage, knowing an institution, just like knowing an individual before, the going gets tough. So what happens when the going gets tough? How am I received there? By the way, when I was an expert, I issued an amicus curiae, one of, I think, 48 amicus, so friends of the court, to say there was no jurisdiction because of the legal principle at the base of criminal law, calling for sort of a restricted interpretation, and the very questionable status of Palestine or as a state. And only state can recognize jurisdiction. That was and is my professional sort of expert legal position on jurisdiction. However, once jurisdiction exists, what I contend, and I file something to the judges of the court on their invitation as a representative of victims of Hamas atrocities and their accomplices. On 12th of August, 2024, you can find it online. 12th of August, 2024. Yes, because August 2025 hasn't happened yet. So it's 12th of August, 2024, where I said, if jurisdiction exists, then it exists to all victims, and all victims must be equal before the court. Justice has to be done. It has to be seen to be done. It has to be done also separately. Part of the damage is that we're connecting between arrest warrants against heads, Prime Minister, Israeli Prime Minister, a democratic state under the world, its darkest hour, most challenging hour of a nation. It doesn't mean that crimes are not committed and that Israel is free from scrutiny. Israel has to be under scrutiny under Israeli law, and unfortunately, if Israeli law will not act, then under international norms. We are part of nations, among nations, but separate that from crimes committed and accountability for victims of Hamas crimes. In fact, victims I represent became transparent on that day, 20th of May, when the prosecutor of the ICC announced he was requesting arrest warrants against 3 Hamas leaders and against 2 Israeli leaders in the same breath. And I objected to that on 12th of August. I objected to that before, but 12th of August to the judges of the court. How am I received? I am received incredibly. Richard, just today, my students, because of our action, October 7 Justice Without Borders, my students were lucky enough to receive people from victims section describing experts from there, from the ICC The Hague, speaking to our students at Reichman University, teaching them about what victims can do about their place, about other cases. I'm heard by judges through victim sections in periodic reports. I am accepted by the prosecutor's office. I issued the first call, 31st October, to the prosecutor, 2023. Since November, I'm in direct contact with them. I have a specific drive. I bring evidence. I bring direct witnesses, live witnesses, survivors, and other key witnesses demonstrating that what has happened is systematic and is not coincidental. And we make trips, they're confidential trips. We don't publish them online, when we're there, nothing on social media. Afterwards, then we say as an organization that this is what we do, but the people we bring are normally everything is confidential in order to protect them. It could be dangerous, to go against Hamas and extremists and people who are not there to hear reason. And we want to preserve their lives, but we also want to preserve the integrity of this investigation. How are we accepted? We are accepted incredibly warmly. Sometimes I'm the only person in the room, and I wish the world was there. I pinch myself, and in any case, this is a space that I refuse to leave empty.
Yeah, this has been a remarkable hour. I have other questions I could ask. I'm sure our people are listening as well. We've held virtually everybody that signed on till the end, which just shows what incredible interest there is in your presentation. And I look forward to finding other ways in which AAJLJ and October 7 Justice can work together. You've provided with information for how people can support your organization. Let me also say, we would love to have people support as well, and also AAJLJ in the work that we do in allowing these kinds of sessions to take place. With hear from speakers, support our advocacy as well, which is at aajlj.org. And I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, as they say in that old movie. Good luck to you in everything you do. I see Alyssa on the screen. I don't know if Alyssa wants to say a final word as well, but thank you again so much for being.
Thank you, Richard. I want to reiterate my deepest thanks to AAJLJ, to you, Richard, to Arthur, who's made the connection. He's from the same world as we're both from the global justice. And for anyone having questions, I apologize for the time restrictions. You're welcome to connect with us. There's an email here, legal@october7justice.org. And also personally to me, it's the same email, but you just put Yael in the beginning. And definitely support AAJLJ. Your support is important for us, for October 7 Justice. This is how we're greater when we're together.
Alyssa, anything else that we all need to hear from you before we go?
Just a few things. Thank you so much, Richard. And of course, thank you so much, Yael, for your incredible selfless work that you've been doing. I will be distributing a recording within the next day or so. And also I'll ask in my follow-up if people are willing to be added to the mailing list of October 7th, Justice Without Borders, and find ways to continue to support your very, very important work in any ways that we can. So thank you again to everyone. And I have one final question. Can you repeat your email the email addresses one more time?
Sure, please put the email in the chat for October. So it's Yael@October, and then the 7, the number, justice.org.
Okay.
I was going to say something following what you said, Alyssa, about, but now I'm just to say thank you so very much. Yes, thank you for my team. Thank you for the victims we represent. So, they're not here visually, but they can see us. They're going to see this recording as well. They're totally connected, for us, we're like part of the same reality, really. So Justice Without Borders, right? So also the representation without borders. So thank you in their name as well.
Thank you. And let's continue a collaboration so that we can support your work. Thank you. All right,
Gratefully so.
everybody, take care and thank you again for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Hi, everyone.
Take care. Goodbye.